strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Now here's your host, Laurie Morin-van.
Hey. Hello, everybody. My name is Laurie Morin-van, and this is another episode of Strategy Talks. We talk about business strategies, marketing, social media strategies with amazing guests. If you are listening to this as a podcast, I want to make sure that you are welcomed. Special welcome to our listeners. And thank you for those who are going to be here live or are here live right now. If you are watching this on the replay, make sure to put hashtag replay in the comments so we can go back and answer your questions if you have any. I'll be monitoring comments. So if you have questions for our guests today, make sure you go ahead and ask those. I want to do a special shout out to our brand new first time ever sponsor for Strategy Talks, Social Insider. They are the intuitive dashboard for social media analytics, reporting, and competitors analysis for brands and agencies. So thank you so much for sponsoring us, Social Insider. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in my guests for today. Here we are. Hi, Laurie.
Hi, Doreen.
I want to introduce you to my sister-in-law, Laurie Morin. She is author Laurie Morin. She's best known for her book, Shero's Journey, and its story-guided self-discovery framework to help you find the space, time, and resources to prioritize yourself, process the past, rewrite your old stories, and create a clear vision for the future. Through her book, retreats, coaching, and community, Laurie supports those ready to plan adventurous lives and legacies. And I love that. And we have known each other for 34 years, Laurie. That's a long.
But who's counting?
Who's counting, right? That's a long time. But we're not here to rehash the past. We're talking about an amazing book that you wrote, Shero's Journey, and really the book launch strategy behind it. And so while we were in the green room, and I love to always, ask my guests things in the green room, and we kind of start talking about what we're going to talk in here. And you said something which was really interesting to me, that the book launch strategy was kind of an accident. So let's just go with that. Let's start out, Laurie. Tell me a little bit about the book, how long it took to write, and how far in advance you started thinking about marketing your book. Because that's something that a lot of authors, let me just say it like this. They're two different skills, right? Writing a book and marketing a book.
Absolutely. They are two different skills, and a lot of authors don't think about it. And I never thought about it during the writing process. So the book started in 2018 when I went on a retreat called Write Your Book in a Weekend. Ha, ha, ha.
I would like to go to that one. Let's do it.
Right. It's a great idea. You can actually make a lot of progress. So I came out of that weekend with a whole storyboard, which is basically the chapters outlined and the things you want to say in each chapter. And then fast forward 2 years, I retired, and it was COVID. And I said, all right, I'm going to sit down and write this book.
Right.
But by then I had learned enough from being a coach and from also doing some courses that you should test out your ideas before you go ahead and create a whole new product. And a book really is a product, right?
Sure.
And you want readers. So I thought about it and I said, I've got a lot of friends on Facebook who would be in my target audience, women basically from 30 up through, we won't say how old, but a few decades there.
Sure.
And I had a lot of personal friends. I had a page and I had 2 groups. And I thought, I'm going to test out my ideas on Facebook. So I started putting out little posts with one little topic at a time and just seeing which ones got comments, which ones people reacted to. And I also did a few polls to find out, because, I'm of a certain generation, but really the women I was trying to reach are of a different generation. So to find out if their experiences were like mine or different and how they were different. And I got a lot of information. So that was the first step, is I just used it to test out my ideas.
And this was before you finished writing the book. You had a
It
storyboard.
was.
You had the idea of the book. You probably had your title. Did you have your title?
I had a tentative title.
Okay.
That's one of the poll questions I did, actually. I tested out 4 different titles.
That's amazing. So you were doing that market research while you were still in the process of writing. So that's a big aha moment here, I think, for a lot of people, right? Because we're so focused on, this is what I want to write. But you thought about it as a marketer, which is, this is not about me. You're writing a book for your audience. So let me give them what they need. I love that. So then what happened?
So then that was so successful. I got so much feedback. I decided to create a new private group for the people who had been commenting back and forth a lot. And I wanted to use them actually to get feedback. So I asked if they wanted to join this group, where I would give them a chapter at a time with my thoughts and get their feedback on it, and also get their stories to see if they had things to add or things that they had experienced differently, so that I could reach people from different backgrounds, different generations. And I got about 15 people in that private group. And they were really all different ages, from 30s to 70s, I would say. Not so diverse background-wise, because a lot of people I know are lawyers or professional women, and that's just who I know. So
yeah, that makes sense.
But so I'd use it to test out something. Like, one of the things I write about in the book is this good girl syndrome of being brought up to be nice and put other people first, et cetera, et cetera. And I wanted to see if women 10, 20 years younger than me still were brought up with that. And it was interesting because they were, but they were also brought up to think, well, you can have it all. You can do it all. You can be anything you want to be. So in a way, the stress they had was even greater than the stress I had. Because they're supposed to give everything to everybody and be a successful professional Supreme Court judge at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
So I used some of those snippets in my book draft, which was really like the 30th draft that I sent to an editor. And she really loved the book, but she sent it back to me and said, I think you should expand on some of these other stories, because they really enrich the book, that you're not just talking about your own experience, but other people's experience. So then I took another step, and I got certain women who had really contributed a diverse point of view, and I interviewed them. And I included parts of the interview in the book.
So this strategy that you came up with, that wasn't initially part of your book.
No.
But it came to be because you did this market research and you had this private group. And then that enriched the experience, because your editor, you were already working with an editor, said you need to include these stories. That is great. We have Hope who's here. I just want to mention, hi, Hope. She says, fascinating book topic. Hope's a great friend of mine, and she's here watching. So that's awesome. I just wanted to say hi to Hope. So I love that you included that in the book, and that wasn't originally the plan. So now the book is being shaped by the market research.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's why you do it, right? Because otherwise you're talking to yourself, and what you want to do is talk to your readers. So I loved it. And I really felt like it made the book better, and it also increased my awareness and understanding, so that in my other coaching business, I can help women more than I used to be able to, because I understand where they're coming from.
All right. So So that was, so now you've had the storyboard, you create a private group, you realize that the interviews are really valuable. You start in, you add them to your book, and then what happens? So now you have a book, right?
So now I have a book, and I have a whole bunch of people, both the private group and the bigger group, who have really supported me and are really interested. And I started taking a course on how you do a book launch. And I discovered, well, you have to line up people who are going to promote it on the day of your launch and who are going to write reviews, because it's really important to get 10 reviews as soon as you can. And they have to be legitimate reviews, but
Sure.
but it doesn't just happen naturally. You don't put your book on Amazon and people start reviewing it. So that's part of the strategy. So I went back to my whole bigger group and I said, does anybody want to be part of a book launch team? And I got about another 15 people, some of the same and some different, who decided to sign up for my book launch team. And for them, I created a separate mailing list, within my system, so that I could communicate off of Facebook and communicate with them directly. So the way that worked is I sent them each an advance copy free of the book and asked them to give me their honest feedback, and also sent them some ideas about what they could post on social media, how they could share the information. And on the specific day of the book launch, I asked everybody to share it with their friends and family members. At the same time, I reached out separately to people in my network to get what they call editorial reviews.
Sure.
And those are people who are influencers of some kind in your field. So they may have written a book in your field, or they may just be somebody well-known in your field. And I got, I think, 4 of those people, because when you look at the book jacket on the back, you see all those little blurbs. Those are editorial reviews.
Okay, that makes
sense. And that's, yeah. So you sent the book out to people who you thought other people would listen to.
Sure.
And asked them what they thought about it. And I did that through my Facebook connections too, because to be honest, in the world that I'm in the coaching retreat world, most of my friends are virtual. I may have met them once live at a retreat or a meeting, but I know them mostly through social media. So anyway, I got this book launch group together and we launched, and I made it up to number 1 in a couple of my subcategories on launch day, which was the goal.
Right.
And sold, a fair number of books. And it's really just a strategy to get Amazon to notice you, because Amazon promotes things that get the most views and reviews. And, for a first book, I thought it was pretty successful. I've learned a lot from it that I might do differently the next time.
That was going to be my next question, Laurie. So I love how you very systematically went through this, even though, we talk about this in the world, right? As a social media consultant, I've helped a client launch her book. I know Hope's here. She says she has an author as a client. We get asked to help people promote a book. I love that you're here as the author. And what I love about it is that it's probably super authentic, and I'm sure it was. And I know I've interacted with you about the book because it came from you. So as a manager, as a social media manager, having to help or being tasked with helping somebody to market a book, you have to really get into the mind and mindset of the author in order to pull this off. But this could also be something that the author could do to support the marketing team, having those connections and reaching out. So I love that. And I love that you're kind of really shared that whole process with us. But my question to you is, are there some things that you tried that didn't work? Advice that you got that didn't work, or things that you're like, oh, this has got to work, and then it just flopped?
Now, the things that didn't work were the things that came from some experts, and they're probably good strategies, but they weren't me. So advertising. I just bombed out on advertising. I took courses on how to write Amazon ads and things like that. And I think, I had a message that I wanted to get out, and that wasn't necessarily the message that would cause somebody to buy the book. So it didn't really work for me. And the other thing that didn't work is I didn't start early enough. Now that I have this process, I would start much earlier.
All right. So let's talk about that, because that's really great information. So I'm thinking 6 months. Is that not early enough?
It's real. Well, it wasn't for me. I think I did start about 6 months before my launch date, but I started at the very beginning of that process that I told you. So I was just testing ideas. At 6 months out, you actually want to be testing content, not just the ideas. So you want to have things written that you can get feedback on. You want to be setting up your interviews. I didn't set up my interviews till maybe 2 months before my launch date. And then I had to really rush to get them done.
And get them included in your book,
and get them
correct?
included. Yes.
Okay. So when you are doing it again, because you're writing a second book, tell us a little bit about that, and then we can go there, right? So you're writing a second book. You're already implementing this book launch strategy as you're writing it?
I am. I'm actually in another, starting in middle of March, in another Write Your Book in 30 Days challenge. And I know better now. I know the whole book isn't going to be written in 30 days, but I'm going to plan out my strategy from that month. And I'm going to give myself a year so that I can take each of these steps and really do them in depth. And partly it's because this is a book aimed at professional women, and I want to interview quite a number of people to put in it. So I know that's going to take some time. But I would say 9 months minimum to really do a good job. The way that I did it. I know there are probably professionals who do it differently and, who have their own systems. There are professionals who start with an already written book. But I'm talking about from the author's perspective, starting from the beginning of the process.
Well, and that's why I love interviewing you today, because I think we often as marketers get that. We get to that process like, here's my book. I'm launching in 2 months. Can you help me promote it? Right. So it's more of a promotion than a book launch. So your book launch includes, the strategy of writing it, interviewing, getting the content, which is a big part of promoting a book, right? Getting the mindset of the author, of understanding the reasons for writing the book, what they want to accomplish, who they want to reach, all of those parts. And we often just get handed a book. Here's the book. Here's the title. Promote it.
Right.
So that's and I love we talked earlier about authenticity, right? Very authentic when you as an author are included in the process. I do want to go back a little bit to that paid strategy that you said didn't work, and that's you're not the only one who has said that to me. You're not the only author who has mentioned that to me. That the paid strategy, it's really hard to hone into that right audience, especially if it's not a business book. Now, a business book that's written for, employees that work for a corporation, if you have a talk to go with it, if you're a speaker and you're writing a book, that's a different kind of strategy to go with that. But you're were you a self-published author, Laurie?
I was a self-published author, and I was in the so-called self-help field, which I don't think it lends itself all that well to advertising.
Right. So, and I think that I would just kind of wanted to make that point that if you're watching this and you're working with an author, or you are an author, don't dismiss the paid strategy part to this, but because it's a lot of work to go through the Facebook group and get that feedback, but it's super valuable. So if you're shorter on time and you have a large budget, you might be able to pull that off, because that's the other part to that, right, Laurie? It's not just like they didn't work, but you probably didn't have a $10,000 budget to go promote this book.
No, I didn't have a $10,000 budget. And I'll tell you kind of the flip side of that, which is also a paid strategy. Book promotion sites can really work well. So there's things like BookBub that have their own audience of thousands of members. And you do have to pay to use their services, but they're reaching targeted audiences for you. So that worked a lot better for me than just Amazon ads. But I could see with a business book, or the other exception I would say is if you're already well-known, you're either already a well-known author or you're just well-known in your field, then I think advertising is great.
That makes a lot of sense. So I just wanted to pull this up. Hope says congratulations on your second book. I'm thinking that for your second book, now that you're well known, you've figured this out, maybe you have a little bit of a paid budget for your next book, especially if you're starting early. So I want to wrap this up with a couple of rapid fire questions, and then we're going to tell our audience how to get in contact with you. Great. So is it, I'm just going to ask you a question, show or tell?
Okay.
Show or tell?
Show, absolutely.
Okay. Education or experience?
Experience.
Loose guidelines or clear directions?
Loose guidelines.
Okay, I love that. And I know you well enough to have guessed your answers. That's awesome. So for those who listened to this podcast today, I just want to tell you, thank you for being here today and for listening to author Laurie Morin talk about her successful book launch strategy that she, as an author, completed herself. And as she goes on her journey to her second book, I want you to be able to connect with her. For those who are watching live, Laurie, how can people connect with you? Where can they find you? What's the best place to reach out and connect with you and follow your next journey to your next book?
Well, my latest favorite social media hangout is LinkedIn. And since I'm writing a book for professional women, that's where I'll be doing most of my work about the book launch. I still have an old handle on LinkedIn. It's at Prof Laurie Morin.
Okay.
And I tried to change it, but I couldn't get anything good. So I just decided I'm just going to be Prof Laurie Morin.
Okay. And that was because you're a you're a retired law professor. So yes. For those that are watching or listening. So I love that. I will make sure to put that in the comments, but it's at Prof Laurie Morin. And connect with Laurie, follow her journey, and be part of the process of writing this book. Because that was the other flip side to that, answering questions about your book as you were asking them, as you're writing that first book. The part that we didn't really say, but what happens is you, as a friend of Laurie, you have an investment in her book, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the cool part to working with an author and giving feedback and giving that honest opinion and answering questions. And then you're invested in that book, and that's really what you as an author are looking for. But as a reader, as a friend, a colleague, that's what you give, and I think that's a great collaboration with authors. So I love that.
Thank you, Doreen. Yes, I think reading a book should be a conversation. So it really helps to have people along with you on the journey. And I want to thank you so much for having me today. It was really, it was intimidating when you said, I'm doing this social media strategy thing. I thought, I don't know anything about social media.
And here you are providing a wonderful guideline to a book launch strategy that I haven't heard anybody else talk about. So very clearly laid out. So thank you so much, Laurie, for being here. Thank you again to our audience today. I'm going to say goodbye, and I will be back next week talking about LinkedIn. And so this was a good segment into, Laurie is going to be on LinkedIn moving forward. The next 2 weeks, we have 2 LinkedIn experts joining us here on Strategy Talk. So thank you so much for being with us today. And Laurie, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Doreen.
I'll talk to everybody later. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.